Thanks for joining us today. I'm Joe Belmonte, the Business Development Manager with Environmental Construction Solutions, and with me today is Austin Childress, representing Profile Products. He's going to talk about hydroseeding on energy sector job sites and get into biotic soil medias and some of the other things that are new to that industry. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. You'll notice a chat box in our webinar platform. Feel free to post up today and say hello and tell us where you're from and where you're joining us in at. I typically start for the new folks joining by talking a little bit about who we are and the WS Family Conway of companies. Environmental Construction Solutions, who host these webinars, are the Mid-Atlantic's premier supplier of job site products for erosion control, stormwater, and more. And the other logos you'll see here represent our sister companies in other facets of the green industry. So I'd encourage you to check out our WS Conley LinkedIn page, where you can find posts about what all our companies are up to, job openings, and more. All total, we're a bit over 100 employees, and many of you have heard me say we're big enough to serve you, but small enough to want to. And one last slide here before we get started with Austin. I mentioned this last month on our webinar series. It's a shameless plug for our industry. This week in Dulles, Virginia, the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the IECA is meeting. That's the International Erosion Control Association, and they're having their annual conference and trade show. I'm speaking there tomorrow. I know that some of Austin's team is up there as well. It's a great group of exhibitors and speakers, as well as field trips to learn about erosion control and stormwater. So give the IECA a quick Google search and find out where your chapter is. It's a great industry organization to learn and to get involved in. So, all right, Austin, one last note before I turn it over to you. Remember, folks, that when we're done, we'll have questions at the end, and there'll be a website link and an access code where you can go on and receive a PDH certificate that will eventually be emailed back to you. So, Austin, I'm going to close out my video here. I'll be in the wings if you need me. If you want to close your video and share your screen, and we can get going.
All right. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. All right.
And I can see you perfect. You're all set.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you. And to the whole ECS team, I appreciate you giving us this opportunity. So we're going to go through the hydroseeding basics on energy job sites today. My name's Austin Childress. I'm with Profile Products. I'm the regional sales manager covering Louisiana to Virginia for Profile. So a lot of you are located in that Virginia market, and be glad to come help you with anything that we need to. But let's go ahead and get into the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit just about who is Profile, what do we do, what are our 5 fundamentals, and then how can we help you achieve erosion control and sustainable grass on your projects. And as Joe mentioned, if you have some comments or questions, you can put those in the chat box for us. I'm going to play a little quick video regarding Profile and who we are, and so hopefully everybody will be able to view this.
Profile Products. As the leading global provider of soil and water management solutions, Profile innovates, manufactures, and markets a wide range of agronomically based products, serving a diverse set of marketplaces around the world. Built on a commitment to research, development, and environmental stewardship, Profile has pioneered the creation of unique applications of products and solutions focused on preventing erosion, promoting sustainable vegetation, improving horticultural operations, and enhancing the playability of sports fields and golf courses. With nearly 1,300 distribution points on 6 continents and in more than 75 countries, both here and around the globe, Profile is the market share leader, delivering greener solutions to preserve soil and water resources, and enhancing the quality of life at work, at home, and at play.
All right, so hopefully it gives you a little bit of an idea of who Profile is. But one of the other things I wanted to mention is, Profile is very proud of our environmental leadership in the industry. As you can see here, we've restored over 1.5 million acres. We've saved over 3.5 billion pounds of wood and paper products from the waste stream. Over 125 million tons of sediment have been saved out of our waterways, and over 100 million tons of carbon has been sequestered with our products. So Profile is very proud of this and is going to continue to be a leader in this sustainability in the environment. So what are some of the markets that we play in? You know, mining is a large one, fire restoration, coal ash, pipeline, transportation, DOT, and then regular site development. So all of these are big markets that we're involved in. But largely today, we're going to discuss the solar market. So you'll probably see a few projects and photos from different solar projects. Obviously, that's a booming industry. And Virginia is a very hot market for that right now as well. So let's talk a little bit about what is hydroseeding. So you see this large hydroseeder right here. Basically, you put all of your seed, fertilizer, amendments, and you mix it into the tank with your seed, stir it up, and you spray it out. So these machines go from very, very small to very large machines like you see in the picture here. And it is very customizable to your site. A lot of people ask, you know, is there seed in your hydromulch? You know, no, there's not seed in the hydromulch. You put that in specific to your job site. So that is one thing that allows you to change from job site to job site. So on the same page, I like to include this into my presentation because I think it's very important to the success of every project. The owner, the engineer, the agency, everybody here needs to be on the same page as to what we're trying to accomplish. This doesn't just go for our products, but you know, it goes for your whole project. But your budget that you have to put towards grassing and erosion control is probably going to determine a lot to do with the result you get. You know, if you go in and your budget is extremely low, and you know, a lot of times grassing is the last thing left to do on the project, and you don't have much money left and you just kind of throw nothing at it, then your percentage is pretty low that it's going to be effective. But as you increase that budget, your expectations should increase. But, you know, having a low budget can work. I'm not sitting here saying that, you know, you have to throw tons of money at it to be successful. That's not always the case. But you just need to understand that, you know, there are a lot of factors that go into having a successful grassing job. And if you put the right inputs in, or the more inputs in, the more likely you are to be successful. So we'll talk about some of those projects, products and things that you can use on your job. Hydroseeders can do a super cheap job, but they can also do a fairly expensive work. So it's really, you know, what is put into the machine that determines, you know, how inexpensive and cheap or very expensive the project actually is. So all hydroseeding is not the same. It's really something I want to point out. All hydroseeding is not the same. So let's say you on your job site and you say, well, instead of rolling out blankets, I want to put hydromulch on the slope. You know, we want to remove that plastic from the slope and we want to spray mulch on there. Okay, well, we don't need to go use our basic, cheaper hydromulch on a slope application and expect to get good results. We need to use a hydraulic erosion control mulch that is going to provide a lot of erosion control on the site. You know, if you go out and use a cheap mulch on a slope and we get a big rain event, it's probably going to wash. And then that's where we get kind of a bad taste in your mouth when it comes to hydroseeding, the wrong products put in the wrong place. So we're going to talk a little bit about making sure we're putting the right products in the right place. Just for instance, you know, let's say it was more of a sod replacement. Well, you can't replace sod with $1,200 an acre hydroseeding. You know, you need to use a high quality hydroseeding mixture to achieve sod quality results. Now, that will still be far less expensive than sod, but you do have to spend more money than the super cheap to get side quality results. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the process. The 5 fundamentals is what we call the process, and this is how we look at every project that we go to, whether we get brought in the design phase or if we get brought in after the fact, after there was a failure. So the first thing we want to do is create optimal soil conditions. We want to make sure the soil is acceptable for growing good vegetation. Then we want to pick the right grass species. We want to pick the right erosion control materials. We want to make sure they're put down properly and at the right application rate, because if we have done everything correct up until now and we put it down incorrectly or we use the incorrect amount, we're probably going to struggle. And then we want to follow up with inspection and maintenance. So these are our 5 fundamentals, and this is how we look at every project. And this is how we would recommend you look at the grassing on your site as well. So first, let's look at the optimal soil conditions, creating optimal soil conditions. So what is a good, healthy topsoil? Well, if you look at the picture on the bottom right, it's that O and A horizon. That's really where we want to be growing grass. The problem is that's usually not where we're trying to grow grass on our job sites. Usually that's the first thing that's taken off or scraped off, and we're trying to grow grass in that B and C horizon. As you see here in the chart at the top right, organic matter and biota are very, very important. Those are a lot of times the things that are lacking in the soils that we try to grow grass in. So what can we do about that? So we're going to talk about that. How can you tell if you have a healthy soil? Well, this picture, you can kind of tell, the picture on the right, it's a little bit healthier soil than the one on the left, but it's not always that easy. So we want you to take a soil test. One of the guys that works with us has a saying that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So we can't tell you how to fix your soil until we know what it is and what it's lacking in. So we really need to take a soil test. That's very important. I would recommend that on all your job sites. And if you can't or you don't have enough time, it's best to at least have an idea of what it is generally in your area. So for a soil test, there's a couple different ways you can go about that. The guys at ECS that are hosting this webinar, they can go out and perform the soil test for you, and they can help you along the way with analyzing that. Profile also has a website called profileps3.com. You can go in and you can create a username and a password. You can create a project, and then you can get a free soil test form, and you ship that off, and Profile will pay for the soil test. You just pay for the shipping of the soil, and then we email you the test results with the appropriate products to fix your soils. So that's definitely making it a little bit easier for you to get your soil test. So there's lots of things that go into a soil test, but let's talk about 2 very important ones that'll come back. pH. So pH is one of those 2. Okay, so let's look here. Let's say in Virginia, a pH of 5 is not unreasonable. Okay, if we have a pH of 5, we're wasting about 54% of our fertilizer that we're putting down. We really want to get that pH in that 6.5 range when it comes to growing grass. So getting our pH up is very important. Well, if we go out and put agri-pelletized lime, sometimes that might take 4 months before it really starts changing the pH. So we have fast-acting lime products. These products go out and start changing pH in about 5 days, and they last about 18 weeks. So really in that time frame that you're trying to get your grass up and growing, this type product is a huge benefit for you on your job site. So after pH is organic matter, okay? So not necessarily in that order, but organic matter is extremely important to be able to grow sustainable grass. So what if there is not good topsoil on your site? What do? Do you use subsoil and hope for the best? We call that spray and pray. So we see that a lot of times where we just hey, we'll take a shot at it. And what that leads to a lot of times is either inconsistencies throughout the job site where, maybe you've got good coverage here, but you don't over here, or you end up doing it 2, 3, 4 times before you get the desired result. So what can you do? You can haul in a lot of topsoil, compost, manures. There's a lot of different options there, but a lot of these are timely. There's a lot of trucking involved, and usually they're not very cheap. So usually they're pretty costly. So we have another option for you here, and it's called Proganics. Proganics is used to basically replace topsoil on your job site. So you spray this on top of your existing soils, and you are left with a much better soil profile. And we'll talk about kind of what the Proganics does. But you can watch in this video just the application through the Hydroseeder. It comes in a bale form like regular hydro. All right, I'm going to show a short video right here about Proganics, and hopefully it'll provide some info for you.
When you need to ensure the success of your project, turn to Proganics Biotic Soil Media to help your soils reach their full potential. Healthy soil is at the root of every thriving plant and the foundation for sustainable vegetation. But what exactly makes up healthy soil, and how can you establish sustainable growth on your job site? Healthy soil is primarily made up of air, water, and mineral matter, but the key elements that differentiate healthy soil from depleted soil are organic and biological elements that sustain the nutrient cycle. In nature, plant and animal residue, also known as organic matter, are broken down in the soil by microbes to create nutrients that are readily available for plant uptake. New plants will eventually add more organic matter as the cycle continues and sustains itself with the support of other specialized microbes, such as endomycorrhizal fungi. Endomycorrhizae feed on the carbon plants give off, and in return, will help deliver water and nutrients that may otherwise be out of reach from plant roots, forming a symbiotic relationship that benefits both. Without organic matter and beneficial bacteria, the nutrient cycle breaks down and soil can die. Unfortunately, too many erosion control and revegetation projects fail due to soils deficient in this type of biological activity. So what can you do if you're dealing with depleted or deficient soil? You ignite the nutrient cycling process with Proganics Biotic Soil Media. When you hydraulically apply Proganics to your site, you introduce a patented biological nutrient system with beneficial bacteria, in addition to key soil building components, including endomycorrhizae and patented thermally refined bark and wood fibers. These thermally refined bark and wood fibers introduce organic matter while also providing high moisture retention. When combined with Proganics beneficial bacteria and other ingredients, including biochar, humic acid, and seaweed extract, you get a combination that ignites the nutrient cycle process to restore depleted soils back to health. Proganics isn't just good for soil health, it's also good for your bottom line, saving you time, money, and the uncertainty that comes with topsoil or compost. To provide the same organic and soil building components as 2 tank loads of Proganics on a 1 acre site, you would need to spread 36 truckloads of topsoil 4 inches deep. Specifications calling for 2 inches of compost, equating to 269,000 pounds per acre, can be replaced with just 5,000 pounds of Proganics per acre to stimulate the nutrient cycling process. And that's cost savings you can easily add up. If failure isn't an option on your project, Proganics is your solution. Calculate your potential cost savings now with the Proganics calculator, and don't let depleted soil delay the success of your project.
All right, so hopefully that video gave you a pretty good idea of what Proganics can do for you on your job sites when you have soils that are deficient and have very low organic matter, basically dead soils. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is there was a revision to an ASTM standard last year. This standard is for topsoil used for landscape and construction purposes. So this specification was updated, but it was also amended to say that an engineered soil amendment could be used as an alternative to topsoil. Well, Proganics meets that engineered soil amendment. So if you specify topsoil with this ASTM specification, it also allows for the use of Proganics if there isn't enough topsoil on site to meet your need. So where can you use Proganics? Where would we recommend it be used? Well, obviously, if you have low organic matter or dead soils. Another is if it's high traffic area and you're trying to reduce truck traffic. That's been actually some of our larger jobs when it comes to the DOT. Maybe it's just you're trying to get off your job site and you have some areas that you've had a really hard time getting vegetated. You know, you could go out and touch up some of those areas and hopefully get your NOT. So there are a lot of options when it comes to using Proganics. So here are 3 different job sites, kind of before and after, and you can see where each one of them, we've increased the organic matter, we've increased the pH, and so we're creating a more healthy soil that can have sustainable vegetation, because that's what we're all looking for ultimately, is to have sustainable vegetation on our job sites. Okay, so now we've tested our soil, we figured out what type of amendments we might need. Again, if you test your soils and your organic matter is high and your pH is good, then you don't need these amendments that we discussed. But there are a lot of cases and a lot of projects where we do. So we need to test so we know. The next thing is picking the right plant species, the right grass. I'm not going to really get into the details of seed. I'm going to let Joe and the experts at ECS do that. But I did want to just mention this. One of my pet peeves is actually that you want to make sure if you're trying to do permanent grassing that you don't put too much temporary seed in that mix. I see this a lot of times where the thought might be more is better. Well, when it comes to a temporary grass in a permanent stand, more is not better. When you start getting up into the 20, 30, 40% of a seed mix as temporary, that's just too much, and it's going to shade out and compete against that permanent grass. So I would get with the guys and the experts at ECS when it comes to trying to pick the right seed mix, but definitely be cautious of putting too much temporary in your permanent mixes. So we've checked the soil, we've picked our grasses now. Now we're going to go out. We have to pick the right erosion control material. So what to choose? There are a lot of different hydromulches on the market. So we're going to try and simplify it a little bit for you. You can kind of see the line down the middle of this slide, and that's really a divide that I put there on purpose because I want you to think of everything on the left-hand side of the screen as just a basic seeding mulch. Okay, this is what you would put down to help hold moisture for the seed, and it's going to do, you know, an okay job from an erosion control standpoint. But if you get a big rain event, these are going to wash. They're not erosion control mulches. These are seeding mulches that are typically used on flatter ground. You see in red the application rates there. You know, we've got 2,000 to 2,500 pounds per acre for that left-hand side, and those are your basic seeding mulches for flatter ground. On the right-hand side, we're calling those erosion control mulches. So these are mulches that should be used on slopes. These are mulches that can replace rolled out blankets. So if we put a seeding mulch on the left-hand side on a steep slope and we get a large rain event, it's gonna wash. So that's where we run into issues. And I always ask this when I'm in a group in person is, hey, everybody raise your hand if you've seen hydroseeding fail. And a lot of times we'll have a lot of people raise their hand. And I'll say, well, do we know what mulch was used or what application rate it was used at? And in a lot of cases, folks don't know. So we have to choose the right product to be put on the right application. So on the right-hand side, you'll see in red the application rates. Those are 3,000 to 4,500 pounds per acre, okay? So these are mulches that you would put on 3-to-1s, 2-to-1s, 1-to-1s. And then we're going to go through a couple of these that are highlighted here so we can discuss them. But always remember there's two basic different kind of mulches. There are seeding mulches, and then there are erosion control mulches. So we kind of simplified it even further here. We did a good, better, best and a combo product for you. So the good is a wood with tack. We're saying better is our Pro Matrix product. Best would be Flex Terra. And then our combo product is Proganics Dual. Now we'll talk a little bit more about Proganics Dual later, but earlier we talked about regular Proganics. Well, the regular Proganics is, say, a replacement for topsoil, but it still needs to have something put on top of it from an erosion control perspective. So you don't use it by itself. You would still need to blow straw on top of it, put hydromulch on top of it. You can roll a blanket on top of it, but it can't be put out by itself and expect to hold up to rain events. The Proganics Dual product is different, where it has erosion control properties and it can sustain those heavier rain events. So we'll talk a little bit more about all of these products. So kind of in the good, better, best design that you see in the previous chart, the percent effectiveness of the good is 70%, better is 90%, and the best is above 98%. Okay, so let's make sure we understand that if we use a good product on a slope and we get a rain event, it's only going to be about 70% effective. So you have to be cautious about using the right product. So VDOT does have categories for mulches, so this helps simplify things for us. They have types 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can kind of see here for type 1, we have papers, blends, and wood mulches. Those are the seeding mulches that I talked about earlier that were on the left-hand side of the screen. And then now when you get into types 2, 3, and 4, those were on the right-hand side of the screen. And then those kind of increase in performance as you go up from types 2 to 3 to 4. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual mulches. So again, these are our spray-on blankets. One of the things that I always like to mention here is, let's say you went outside and it was pouring down rain and you had an umbrella and you had a hole in your umbrella. Well, you're probably going to get wet. Okay. So that's like spraying on a hydromulch, but not completely covering the ground. If you don't completely cover the ground, you're probably going to get erosion and washing in that area. So you got to make sure that you're putting enough product down and getting proper application. We'll talk a little bit about that more later, but think of it like a sponge. The mulch is like a sponge that absorbs the raindrop impact when it rains, and then it's going to protect the soil below. But if we only have a very, very thin layer of mulch on top of the ground, you don't have very much of a sponge. So when we get a big rain event, it's going to blast that mulch in that soil, and we're going to end up having erosion. So we want to create that kind of that sponge layer. So the Pro Matrix product, this is VDOT type 3, and this is what we would consider to be good for 3-to-1 slopes. Maybe some shorter 2.5-to-1 type slopes. But the longer the slope goes, the more we need to move up to a higher end mulch. This product is a more budget friendly product than, say, Flex Terra that we'll talk about in a minute. It's kind of the baby brother to Flex Terra, if you will. But it's not going to perform quite as well as Flex Terra. So it's a balancing act between, you know, your budget and your needs. Pro Matrix is more similar to like a single and double net straw blanket. So if you're trying to compare performance and budget, Pro Matrix will be more similar to the straw matting. Let's show you a few examples here of projects using Pro Matrix. You can kind of see the mulch was applied. You can see the grass starting to grow in. There's 100% Bermuda grass in this particular photo. You can see how well that's starting to really grow in. That's going to be a great stand of grass. Here's an actual airport project. There was so much open ground. You can almost relate this to some of your solar farm jobs where there's so much open area and there's lots of sheet flow. Yes, it's more flat. We're not talking about steep slopes here, but ProMatrix was chosen because there's just a lot of open ground. There's a lot of water moving. So we need to absorb that moisture. You can kind of see the after photo. This is a coal ash project. See our grass establishment there with ProMatrix. Another before and after on that same job site. A little bit different soils on a different coal ash site. So now we talked about ProMatrix. Let's talk a little bit about FlexTerra. So this is going to be a beefier product than ProMatrix. It's going to provide even better erosion control performance. We're going to be able to use it on steeper and longer slopes. So this is more for your critical areas. As you can see, compared to the other photos I showed you, this is a little more intense. Longer, steeper. This is a landfill site. And a lot of folks that have never used hydromulch like this before are like, man, just wait till you get a big rain event. That's going to wash. I can't believe you're not going to put blankets on top of that. But we're spraying on a blanket. You know, instead of rolling one out, we're spraying it on. And you saw in that photo earlier how well this material bonds to the soil. You know, sometimes blankets only attach to the soil where they're pinned into the ground. This was actually overspray onto a liner, but I wanted to show, I pulled it off because I wanted to show how well it bonds together and creates a blanket itself. Okay, this is a pipeline project, an energy project where we put FlexTerra down. And look at the final result there. Just great establishment, great erosion control. You don't see a lot of washing and reeling. So FlexTerra is used a lot when it comes to long, steep slopes. So soil loss per acre per year for these different products. And this is all based on testing done at Utah State University, the Water Research Lab. So you're like looking at these numbers and you're like, there's no way that Excelsior mat is going to lose 16,000 pounds per acre per year compared to FlexTerra at 76. Like, how is that possible? We've been using blankets forever, right? Well, let me kind of show you an example of how that happens. Okay, this is a project that was done in North Carolina in the Raleigh area, and FlexTerra was applied. There was also some test plots beside it that were done with Excelsior. This was done back right before COVID. This was done in January of 2020, and it was January 24th, and you can see the daily rainfall. Okay. There was a couple big events. We had one day where we got 3 inches of rain. So we got almost 5 inches of rain in a 2.5, 3 week time frame. Okay. So we went back out to the job site to take pictures. This is the FlexTerra portion. Okay. We got 5 inches of rain, and this is what our slopes still look like. No washing, no reeling. Right up there at the very top, you'll see a little bit of slippage where the soil just kind of slid a little bit. Not really anything to do with the hydromulch material there. But I think everybody would be very happy if they went out to their job site after 5 inches of rain and saw this. Now, right beside it was the Excelsior matting. Okay. It worked out for us from a photo perspective that they didn't take the matting all the way to the very toe of the slope. Look at the washing and reeling that's happening underneath those blankets. This is why 16,000 pounds of sediment loss versus 76. Now, Granted, if we're sitting out on the road in our truck and we're looking at the job site and you don't see the very bottom of the slope, you're like, oh, everything's covered, we're good. But there's a lot of washing and reeling going on up under that, okay? So hydromulch can work as well or better than blankets. We have to pick the right application. Now, one thing I do want to make sure to point out is hydromulch by itself is not meant to be put into concentrated flow areas. So that is the perfect place to put blankets, concentrated flow, okay? So if you've got a ditch line and you were to ask me, hey, Austin, should I put Flex Terra in it or should I put blankets in it? You should put blankets in it. So just want to be clear there. There's definitely a place for all these different products. Okay, so we talked about Pro Matrix, we talked about Flex Terra. Now let's talk about Proganics Dual. So this is our combo product. This is the product that combines everything we talked about earlier with Proganics, but with erosion control. So here's an awesome photo that we took out at a job site where we put down Proganics Dual up under some solar panels. See us applying it just off of there. And then you can see kind of what it looks like on the ground after it's laid down. So this is going to provide us with the benefits of the topsoil replacement, but then also the erosion control. So it's a one-step product. Remember before we mentioned with regular Proganics, we still have to come back and put something on top of it. Let's go back a couple photos right here. So if we were to put regular Proganics down, we have to come back in here again to put something down on top of it. So a lot of times when you can get into an area, but you can't get back to it, this is the perfect product for you. But it also saves you time. You don't have to go back and redo more tank loads on top of it. So we're seeing a lot of people kind of transition toward this dual product. Here's a really cool project that we did with dual. This one's actually up there in the West Virginia area. This was low organic matter, rocky soils, and long, steep slopes. So let's figure out how we did this. So sometimes you really can't get a hydroseeder to the job site. Sometimes you have to fly it in through the helicopter. You see the bucket starting to release the dual. It's a pretty cool project that we were able to do there. You'll see it takes a lot of little buckets like that to cover up a slope like we were looking at. But they do those flips sometimes in anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 3 or 4 minutes, depending on how far away the landing zone is. So they can really get some material put out. But on this job site, we used dual. And this was a couple years ago. We received no rainfall and it was very dry. And this was 3 weeks after installation. So you can see how much moisture all that mulch holds to help that grass get up and growing without even any rain. So we're starting to see that vegetation coming up, starting to grow. This was 3 weeks later. And I want to point out something in this photo. So this was around a month and a half, I think is what it was. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can really see it well. So up on the top tier, you see all the green spots all the way across there. That's the dual product. On the bottom right picture, you see where there's matting that was rolled out there. Look at the vegetation difference in the two. It's kind of telling. Okay, so we have fixed our soil, we've picked our grass seed, we've picked our erosion control product. Now we need to make sure it's put in correctly. This is very important. So we want to make sure our slopes are tracked up and down, not side to side. If it's tracked side to side, you're just creating little reels in the slope. So you want to make sure it's tracked up and down, and then you're creating little speed bumps all the way down that slope. Another thing is ground prep. Ground prep is extremely important. You know, you can't go out there on concrete and just spray this stuff down and think it's going to work. You know, we need to have a good seed bed. So how you prep the soil is very important. Okay, mulch rates matter. Okay, sometimes you see folks that even if it doesn't wash away, it's not holding enough moisture for that seed to establish quickly. This is a photo or a couple photos of a demo plot that we did. 3 plots at different application rates, 18 days later. Okay, 1,500 pounds, 2,250, and 3,000. And you see the growth establishment difference. And that was the only thing that changed. It's just the amount of mulch that was put down. It holds moisture for that seed to grow. Okay, if I could get everybody to raise their hand if they've ever seen an application like this before, we'd probably all raise our hands. This is too light. This is not going to provide you with erosion control. The only way this would be acceptable in my eyes would be if you're going to come back and roll a blanket on top of it. But this is too light to be an application for an erosion control by itself. This is what it needs to look like if you're spraying on an erosion control material. You don't want to see any dirt, and you want to build that sponge. Okay, so that's something that you need to look for if you're specifying these products, is to make sure that they're applied correctly. Now, I do want to throw in that ECS has a lot of reps that will be glad to come out and help your contractors if they've never sprayed a product like this before. They'd be glad to come out and help you identify, you know, the application rates on the job sites if you'd like some help. And then I'm also available as well, and my whole team. So you have us at your, you know, disposal. So definitely take advantage of that and use us as much as you'd like. This is another couple photos side by side here. Good proper application and improper application. Sometimes if you spray it and then from the bottom and then you go up to the top and look down, you're like, man, it doesn't look as good from up here as it did from the bottom. And that's just where the applicator has to get used to, we call it raining it down. So really you get away from the slope a little bit and you throw the mulch way up in the air and it rains down. And that way it gets on the front and the back side of those cleat marks. Okay, so now we're all the way towards the end here with the 5 fundamentals. We need to do inspection and maintenance. So, you know, one of the inspections would be the initial application. I would recommend, if you have a larger job site, that you do a couple demo plots with the contractor at the very beginning where, you know, you measure out an acre. Like, let's say, for instance, we wanted to use 3,000 pounds of mulch per acre. Okay, well, that's 60 bales. So we go out on the job site, we measure out 1 acre, we measure out 1 acre, and then we spray all 60 bales in that 1 acre. Then we know what it should look like the remainder of the job site. It gives us a visual, you know, the contractor actually sees it done that way. It's, you know, a lot of contractors know how to do this. A lot of them use the same guy all the time to spray, but occasionally that guy's sick, or, you know, they've got a new guy on top of the machine, or they've only sprayed base mulches at 2,000 pounds and they've never sprayed erosion control mulches at 3,000 pounds. So it's always good to get this done on the job site, and we can again help with that as well. So just recapping these 5 fundamentals, this is how we look at every job. Fix the soil, pick the right grass, pick the right erosion control product, make sure it's put down correctly, and then follow up with inspection and maintenance. So a couple projects. Let's take a look at a few photos. This was a coal ash site and they were required to bring in 6 inches of topsoil. This was about a 300-acre site. Well, 300 acres, 6 inches of topsoil, that doesn't, that's not everywhere. And they would have had to have hauled this from forever away. And it would have been extremely expensive. Well, we were able to replace that 6 inches of topsoil with Proganics. Okay. We did testing every 10 acres and we came up with a prescription for that 10 acres. This was kind of our average application that we used on the site. So 3,500 pounds of Proganics, 3,000 pounds of Flex, unless we were in the wintertime, and then 120 pounds of Nutrilime Dry to bring that pH up. Okay, if you look in the very background of this photo, you'll see kind of that tan dirt. That's what the whole site looked like. Okay, it was that tan material. When the foreground you'll see is kind of dark and rich colored, that was where the Proganics was applied. And then you can kind of see the green in the background. That was where the Flexterra was applied on top of Proganics. Now, this was in 2016. This was before we came out with Proganics Dual. I would have recommended Proganics Dual if this project was today. It would have been one application. We wouldn't have had to come back. But this is a great example of how to use these products. So we got all this sprayed and we had no rain for 90 days. 90 days with no rain. Okay. So it just sat there. Yeah, it didn't do anything. We got called out at the job site a couple times and we were like, don't water it. That was their question. Should we be watering it? How are you going to go water 300 acres? Like, you're never going to be able to put enough water on this to keep it alive to sustain it. So we said, just wait. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to wait on rain. And we got rain. We got 7 inches in a day and a half. It was an enormous rain event. Well, we had no erosion issues. The grass started to grow and the owner was very pleased with the results. So a lot of times people might wonder why we use Flexterra on this flat ground. Well, it didn't wash when we had that 7-inch rain event, and we saved them so much money on not having to haul in the topsoil that it made sense. So a lot of times we see a lot of our basic mulches, the wood with tack type products used on our solar farm jobs on flatter areas. This is a quick little video I'm going to show you of a little contraption, a piece of equipment that we created to spray under the solar panels, because a lot of times you're doing a lot of hose work and it's very time consuming. Some grass photos afterwards. And one more video here. So that last video, you noticed that it wasn't in between the panels, but we were demonstrating for the owners and the GC that it can be used in between the panels on their job sites. Here's another photo of Proganics Dual being used. Some of these areas that we're showing these pictures of right here were put on top of blankets, trying to blast it through the mat and grow vegetation, kind of after the fact of not getting real good establishment the first time. So we were able to get some grass growth here. So sometimes you have a chance to go in before the panels are put in. Sometimes you don't. So this is a job site where they actually were putting the post in, but we were able to go in and hydroseed, and they understand they're going to have to come back and touch up a lot of these areas where the equipment was, but they're going to go ahead and get a lot of establishment prior to those panels being in, and then they won't have to go in and kind of work in between the panels as much. Okay, just real quick, the last couple slides here. You know, a lot of times you might have that concentrated flow area like we were talking about, and you need to put rock in it and concrete. And, well, rock and concrete don't look real good on your job sites. A lot of times you want something that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. You want to see grass in your channels, and green armor is a good option for that. Here's a solar farm job where we were able to lay the matting down, and then you blast the Flex Terra material directly down into the mat. It's a little bit of a unique combo system here where our Futerra matting gets laid down, and then the Flex Terra gets blasted into it. You get really great grass establishment. This was a pipeline project in North Carolina where we were doing this. You can see how they put in the anchor trench, they pinned it in, and they were compacting the soil. Pinned everything down. We blasted the Flex Terra into the mat. This was 1 week after installation. They got 3 inches of rain. We had little to no washing. And this was 4.5 weeks after installation. And you can see the big swale areas are the green armor, and you can see how green and lush the grass is compared to some of the other surrounding areas. So that's it for me. That's kind of the basics of hydroseeding on energy job sites. And I'm going to throw it back over to Joe and see if we have any questions. And feel free to take down my phone number and my email. And you can always contact me after the fact as well. Be glad to help you in any way we can. Joe, I think you might be on mute there, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I was.
You're good.
Done this so many times, I forget the basics. Appreciate that. I've got a couple questions coming in. Let me just get this started. So if folks want to take a screenshot or a camera shot with their phone, this is Austin's email. And then, you know, our PDH process, you can go online and get a PDH for this. One of the questions that came out is about the different calculators. There's all sorts of calculators that Profile has. And so I actually put in the chat box the link to the Proganics Dual Calculator. And you can actually look at that. And if you have questions about the other ones, I'm sure you can reach out to Austin and he can walk you through that. One of the couple other questions we'll get into, but I just want to say thanks again, Austin. And you do a great job of talking about what these pitfalls are and, you know, what the difference between Proganics is and Proganics Dual and how that all evolved. And, you know, there's a lot of folks who kind of have seen that in the last few years, but you do a really good job of kind of talking about the difference in that. And I was chuckling a little bit. You know, I've told most of the folks through the years that are on these, I'm from down around the North Carolina, Virginia border, and Austin's joining us today from Columbia, South Carolina, his home state. And when we say soil, we mean SOIL, soil. So you've obviously figured that out. But I was in a presentation a few years ago, and some lady asked, "Well, that's what is soil?" So just a little joke on our accent there. But moving on to questions, one of the things we talked about that came up was in using blankets or using, I should say, hydromulches instead of blankets is, you know, on slopes and things of that nature. And you talked about how like Proganics and ProMatrix and Flex Terra are more erosion control products and not just seeding aids. And one of the things I'd like you to maybe hit on is the functional longevity, because we had somebody ask how do they compare to the life cycle of mattings, and you know, and just talk about what those are.
Yeah, that's a great question. So ProMatrix is going to be a 6 to 9 month functional longevity in the Southeast. And then Flex Terra is going to be more like 9 to 12 months. And what that means is if we were to put no grass seed in that hydromulch mix and we were to spray Pro Matrix and Flex Terra out, it would provide that percentage erosion control effectiveness that we talked about for that product for 6 to 9 months or 9 to 12 months. Now, in our area of the country, we should definitely be able to get grass to grow in that time frame. If we're not, we're having an issue somewhere that we need to discuss. But I will say that we sell a lot more of our Flex Terra type product in the wintertime because of that functional longevity. Because if somebody was maybe spraying in November and they knew they really weren't going to get a great stand until spring, that product's going to help take it all the way to the springtime when the grass and when the temperature is right to grow.
That's great. Good points there. And I would also note that you mentioned a couple things about VDOT. VDOT has done their own testing, and they have a functional longevity for all these types of products. They have a type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. And most other states have done the same. So if you're looking to compare the functional longevity against a certain blanket versus, a certain hydromulch, a good spot might be your local DOT materials list, or if you have a DEQ or a state organization that does that kind of testing, you can do that. We keep a lot of that information on file. You could reach out again to Austin or myself if you can't find it. One of the other questions that came in Austin is a lot of folks really like your kind of the new contraption behind the hydroseeder that could potentially go in between the solar panels. That's just seems to be a real game changer. So just to make sure, is that something that can spray out like a pelletized lime or fertilizer as well, and things like the seed? Can you mix all of your accoutrements, if you will, into the hydroseeder like normal for that?
Yeah, the same slurry mix that you would create that would be sprayed out of the tower or the hose can also be sprayed out of this spray bar. And we've kind of demonstrated that and tested it out, and it sprays even these thick mixes. Sometimes that's the concern, is these thick mixes, will they go through that spray bar? And they will. So that's definitely been something where it's adjustable as well. So you can go wider with it if you need to. You can bring it in and be a little narrow, and you can raise it up and down from a height standpoint too, based on your panels.
Awesome. One last question is that, we talk about Proganics versus Proganics Dual, and with the recent, invention of Proganics Dual, some folks might say, well, do you really only ever need just Proganics? And, I know from working with Profile for years, there's possibilities where you might. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is that, if we have any landscape architects on here, Proganics by itself is sometimes used on ball fields or to help establish golf courses. Even though we're talking more about an erosion control setting, but can you talk a little bit about maybe again, just how you might choose what to use, or what the things you'd look at to use a Proganics by itself with an erosion control method over top of it, or the Proganics Dual?
Yeah, absolutely. So really Proganics by itself is really going to fall into kind of that seeding mulch category when it comes to how well it handles erosion. So again, kind of that left-hand side of the screen would be where Proganics would fall. So if you wanted to use it by itself, you could use it on flatter ground, but you could also maybe save some money there where you were just blowing some straw over top of it. I know there's still a lot of blown straw being done, but you're fixing the soils in the process. Where anytime you really get on the slope applications, I would go with dual. Unless you get into the extreme, we've got one project right now where we're thinking maybe dual might not be enough. Meaning this was a 1.5 to 1 that was about 150 feet long. So we went with what we call our Pro Flex system. So it was Proganics and Flex Terra. So that's kind of like, the ultimate, with Proganics, and then you put Flex Terra on top of it, and that's going to give you the best erosion control performance in the industry. And that product can be used on those super steep critical slopes.
Very good. Good. I appreciate that. I will note too, one thing that's kind of, I remembered while we were talking there, is that Proganics Dual in some states, because it has the erosion control capability, is actually being approved and listed on DOT materials listings. And in Virginia, for example, recently Proganics Dual was added as a type 3 hydromulch. So if you're having trouble around, say the slopes around sediment basins or things like that, that might be a 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 slope, and you have poor soils as well, Proganics Dual would be an incredible opportunity there. You're talking about a soil amendment, an erosion control feature, and based on VDOT's own materials listing, it's got a year of functional longevity there. So just something to consider as you're kind of taking all this in. Austin, I want to thank you one more time. Great show. Great timing, man. Right at an hour with questions. We really appreciate everything you do. Y'all are great to work with, and always enjoy hearing about hydromulches and hydroseeding and how things have evolved and continue to evolve in the last 5 to 10 years and going forward. So if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and sign off. And again, I thank you.
I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much.
All right. Look forward to seeing everybody else on our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.